potential scandal brewing for months in Washington, and now we're learning the House Oversight Committee plans to subpoena documents from Countrywide Financial Corporation. They're looking into a loan program that offered special deals to influential people. Some members of Congress have allegedly received VIP loans from the so-called Friends of Angelo program, that name referring to the company's former CEO, Angelo Mozillo, who has now been charged with insider trading. So what will we learn from these subpoenaed documents? Joining us now from Washington is Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of California. He's also the ranking Republican member of that House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me on this important issue.
Well, you say Countrywide engaged in attempted bribery. Briefly explain the scandal.
Well, what happened over the years is Angelo Mozillo came up with this Friends of Angelo, which morphed from being, the usual employees get a discount on their own product, into a targeted organizational run out of one office in which 4 to 5 loan officers targeted mayors, governors, various national officials, including Franklin Raines, who was heading one of the major GSEs, and members of Congress, both House and Senate, and more importantly, members of the staff. In other words, they looked for people who could help them either write legislation or not write into legislation things that would hurt them, and ultimately led to these trillions of dollars that are now at risk at the GSEs.
And these VIP loans, favorable terms, some waived requirements, et cetera. Now, you call it a calculated effort to buy friends and manipulate public policy. Specifically, which public policies do you believe were influenced?
Well, certainly the fact that Freddie and Fannie took on toxic loans by the bucket load that they would not otherwise have likely taken. They went from being a fairly conservative organization to an organization that's put $6 or $7 trillion worth of marginal loans onto the books, leading to this much being at risk when the collapse came. I think the important thing to look at is the federal law requires that you not receive a gift more than $50 from anyone, and that gift can't be from a corporation, meaning I can't take a dinner here in Washington from a non-lobbyist who simply wants to buy me dinner, even a constituent. That would be prohibited gift. And yet, members of Congress, members of the staff, and other government officials were receiving $5,000 or $10,000 in waived closing cost and 1 or 2 points reduced off of a loan. And you can imagine over the life of a loan, 1 point off of a loan could be another $100,000.
Yeah. You say this was detrimental to American taxpayers. Specifically, how much money do you think may have been involved? How much money might have come out of this?
Well, perhaps only a few million, maybe 20 or 30 million of gross discounts in the entire program. But it's not the bribe that matters. It's what was the action of government at a time when all parts of government should have been saying, wait a second, we're getting out of control. We have too many risky debts. Even in the first days, a year and a half before the crash, there were indications that we should not be taking these loans on, that the market was overheated and the government was part of the problem. And yet, for some reason, and I say this on a bipartisan basis, it seems like everybody that was supposed to be part of financial service oversight was asleep at the switch. Now Barney Frank and others are saying, my goodness, it's all Bush's fault or it's all the Republicans' fault. It's not. And there have to be a multitude of culprits. We want to, at least in the case of Countrywide, find out what role they played through these, and I call them bribes. The Senate Ethics Committee declined to call them that. But remember, that's a committee that declined to call a gold Rolex watch given to Senator Torricelli. They said that wasn't a gift either.
So let me just
the House has
here.
higher standards.
Specifically, the subpoenas have now been granted. The chairman of your committee, Democrat Adolphus Towns, reportedly resisted calls for this investigation, and he, by the way, did get a loan from Countrywide. He says it was not a VIP loan. Were there attempts to block this move?
There were. There's clear resistance on the part of Democrats to do it. But I have to commend some of the crossover Democrats, mostly freshmen, the so-called blue dogs that came in the last few years, of saying that they came to drain the swamp. They're not going to put up with senior members who aren't willing to participate and go wherever they need to go. And to that extent, it was crossover Democrats that made our effort really possible, because when we demanded a vote, they were unwilling to vote with their chairman and made a difference.
All right, Congressman Darrell Issa, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Quite a story. Yeah. All right. Well.